Okay. It might be don'ts.
I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to a full house of Beaverton Books.
I feel that.
Thanks so much for coming tonight to celebrate with Gabbie. Before we begin, I want to share a couple of upcoming events. Tomorrow night we have Randall Henderson. He's going to be here for his new book. It's called From Born Again Christian to Born Again Skeptic. Then this Friday, if you know any baseball fans, tell them to get in here. We have baseball historian and author Tim Sarley, and he's got two books that he's going to be talking about. 1901, The War of the Baseball Magnates, and 1902, When Baseball Stood Divided. So let any baseball fans know. You can find all the details on our website, of course, and on our Facebook page. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, tonight's moderator, Tracy Garvis-Graves, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and international best-selling author of contemporary fiction. Her many, many books include On the Island, Uncharted, Covet, Every Time I Think of You, Cherish, Heart-Shaped Hack, White Hawk Hack, that was hard to say.
I know.
The Girl He Used to Know, Heard It in a Love Song, and The Trail of Lost Hearts. So, Tracy, take it away.
Thank you, friend. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest of honor, her debut novel launching tonight at Beaverdale Books, Gabbie Hanks. Give it up. Gabbie Hanks is a former librarian and now works in literacy for the government. She's an avid psychological suspense reader, and this is her debut novel. And it is fantastic. If you haven't read it yet, you are in for a real treat. Go home tonight, crack that open, get it started, get a Goodreads review by tomorrow morning.
Yes, we'll make you link it. You can just DM me and I'll take it.
Totally true. If you don't like it, just,
Nothing.
but you will. You will absolutely love it. What we're going to do is go through some questions for Gabbie and have her answer them for us, and then we're going to make sure that we leave plenty of time for audience questions. So if you have something that you're dying to ask Gabbie, just hold it until the end, and we'll try to leave plenty of time for that. And then after that, Gabbie will be happy to sign books. Ready?
Yay.
All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start with our first question. Let me see what would be a good one to start with. Okay. What's the strangest Google search you did while writing this book?
There are no small children in here, right? Okay.
Nope, we're good.
So the weirdest one by far is I had to Google how long if semen is good in a dead body, which is gross. And I felt like I was gonna get flagged by some list, and I feel like I'm on there. I still feel like I don't know the answer to that. It really depends apparently on the climate of the location you are in. So.
Right, I know why you Googled that. Yeah. And that's a very interesting answer.
Yeah, it's between 12 and 24 hours. It does not get much more specific.
Interesting. Okay.
What a first question.
For a different question. Was there a line or scene in this book that you almost cut, but you are so glad you kept?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I'm not going to say the whole line. It's in the first chapter, but there's a reference to the main character's being a little snarky, and she's talking about dating apps, and she talks about Nancy Drew. And that line was very contentious. Some people really liked it, and some people did not. But my agent and editor both loved it, and I was like, well, those are the only two people I need to love it. So that one stayed in there. So if you get to Nancy Drew and you don't like it, you were not alone.
I should also have mentioned at the beginning, this is going to be a spoiler-free discussion. So nobody wants us to spoil the book for them, especially if you haven't read it yet. And also, a lot of things won't make sense if you haven't read it yet. So
yes, I'm going to try really, really hard not to, because I've talked about it a lot. I've read it a lot, obviously. So if you see me pause, it's because I don't want to spoil it at all.
Yeah, it can be tricky because you want to,
Yes.
you're excited to talk about it, and then you remember that, wait, I can't talk about that. Okay. Was there ever a moment where you thought, this scene feels too wild, no one will believe it, but you kept it in anyway?
Yes. So there's part of the ending that definitely feels that way. And that's the great part about writing in general. It's really collaborative. You go through so many rounds of edits, so many people read it, so many people have a hand in kind of shaping it before it is what it is when you see it in the bookstore, that it's nice because you can be like, I wasn't sure about this, but then other people love it and you're like, okay, it kind of reaffirms, or vice versa. So there's some things around the end, which you'll know when you read it. But there's a particular scene in like the 3/4 of the way through the book that takes place in a Chili's, and it got added in later. Some of the elements of that scene existed in other parts of the book, but I was like, I feel like this should happen in a Chili's over a triple dipper, and I just feel like it would make it better. And I feel like it really, really works because like there's something about being inside of a Chili's where it's like you're either having the best time of your life or the worst, and it's really aggressive and overstimulating. And then I was like, what if you were in like one of the most stressful situations of your life and also just like in the middle of a Chili's? And I think there was a really careful balance in that scene where if you overplayed it, it would be ridiculous. And I hope that it strikes the right balance, but I was a little worried they were going to be like, can we put this anywhere else, like any other location?
No, I have to chime in. First of all, I love that we went to Chili's. I'm like, we're going to go to Chili's, okay. And then I instantly wanted a triple dipper. Yep. That's all I could think about was a triple dipper. And then, to me, it fit the scene perfectly because of what you just explained. It's like this major thing is happening at a Chili's. Yeah. I loved it. So okay, I think you made a really good choice. This wasn't one of my questions, but since you touched on this, I'd like to go a little bit deeper into this real quickly. How many drafts, like when you first conceived of the premise of the book, how many drafts and how long did it take you to get from that initial seed of the idea to having a manuscript ready to query? Because did you query with this manuscript?
Kind of.
I mean, is this the one that you got your agent with?
Yes, but I had like a very weird publishing story, so
do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can. And then I'll kind of get into what you asked because it's related. So when I first moved here, I moved from Florida 4 years ago, and I didn't know a single soul in Iowa besides my immediate family and my fiance. And I had a major career change, a major like move to a new part of the country. And so I went to a library event at the Des Moines Public Library that Karen Slaughter was having, and she was wonderful. And she had told me about this event on Instagram called Thriller Fest, which is a writing conference for mystery and thriller writers in New York City. And one of the things that this conference does is they have classes. You can pitch to agents in person, which is really like a unique experience because most of the time you query over email. But it was a little pricey, and I just moved, and I was living on my own for the first time, and they had a unpublished authors scholarship. So you could send in your first 10 pages, and if they liked it, they pay for you completely to go to this conference. You get to go to all the classes, pitch in person, and I ended up getting it. So I went to New York.
Congratulations, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it was like completely life-changing. It can be a really long process to get published, and it wasn't like I went to school for it. I didn't know anyone who did this. So it was really great to just kind of be like thrown in, and they're like, now here are editors and agents, and you have this book that you've written, and you kind of got to just go with it. And I met my agent there, and then the editor that I eventually sold it to there. So I queried, but it was very much like a, hey, we met in person, can you send me this? And then she ended up loving it and signing it. So I had the book already when I met her and when I queried. It was really long. I write way too long of books. I am like 150,000 word, then we have to pare it down. So the book I brought to Thriller Fest was like 140,000 words. And they were like, that's great, no one's buying that.
Cut it down.
They're like, it's just, no, it's not gonna happen. So after that happened, right before I sent it to her, I pared down quite a bit. And then I think we got it to like 115. And I'm like, I've never done this before, I don't know how to make it shorter. Like, what do you like? And I had a fantastic agent who was like, let me see if I can kind of like give some suggestions. She did, and then we got it to like a sellable second draft. And that's what the publisher bought. So I had 2 before it sold, and then we went through 1 round of developmental edits, and then 1 copy. So like 4? Yeah. That's a really long answer to that question, I'm so sorry, but it was like a really weird situation. But I think there were 4 in existence.
I think it just kind of highlights for people who might not know how the process works, how stretched out all of it is.
Yeah.
I mean, when people say, so you're done with your book? Yeah. So when will it be out? Oh, not in many
Years.
times. Years.
Yeah, years.
Depending upon at what stage you're at and how much more, developmental editing and just even going through the beta process with your beta readers before you even send it to your team takes time. It's not an easy process.
No. And the first time I didn't have beta readers, they were all engaged to me or my family, and I just made them read it over and over. So that's a fun thing as you get more established too. They're like, that's something I should try.
Okay. Did we answer all of that? Okay.
I think so. I just talk a lot.
So do I, Gabbie. Okay. If your book had a deleted scene or secret epilogue that only you knew about, what would happen in it?
So because it was 104 something
Probably
thousand, there were quite a few deleted scenes. The one that comes to mind is this book originally was a little bit smutty before we decided we were gonna kind of go in this direction. It had, I would say it was still a psychological thriller, but there was a lot of romantic suspense in it, and that is how it started. That was the first chapter. What is the first chapter of the book now is actually the second chapter. It was a really fun element to it. It was kind of the main character going to this bar, and she's using a different name, and she's kind of just picking up men and doesn't really care about them, and you're learning a lot about the character, and it was such a fun first chapter. But with mystery and thriller, pace is everything. So if it slows down, there has to be a really good reason for it, and it just kind of was, while interesting, it really was slow. You're using first 15 pages of a book really have to pack a punch, and we got to a point where it wasn't. But it is really fun to read Nasty Little Secrets, the smutty version.
I love that. It's like the director's cut. If you could slip one of your characters into another author's book world, where would you put them? Or which book?
So I am the biggest Gone Girl fan in the world. I have my bedroom at home, has literally the wall pages, it's papered in it. It's very chic, but it is Gone Girl. So I think if I could stick Rose, the main character, in any world, I would want to put her in that one, and I want her and Amy Elliott Dunn to interact.
She and Amy would get along like a house on fire. They totally would.
Yeah.
And they would use their brains, and they would connive, and they would come up with something beautiful.
And I just want to watch.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah, and just take it in.
Yeah, not be their friend, but watch.
Yeah. I love that answer. Okay. What's a writing hill you'll die on? Something you believe strongly about storytelling that not everyone agrees with.
Okay, I feel like it's related to that last one. So I'm gonna do an effortless transition. I think there's been a lot of talk, especially since Yesteryear came out, which is a great book. If you haven't read it, you should, about unlikable characters, and specifically unlikable female main characters. And when this conversation came up, it was because the main character of that book is not particularly likable, but that doesn't mean that the writing is bad and that the character is poorly drafted. I think sometimes people, if they can't relate to the main character specifically, if they don't like what they're doing, or they're like, this isn't how I would respond in this situation, they sometimes have a negative reaction to it. And I think we have to kind of move past that. We have to read about people doing things in that situation that maybe you wouldn't do, or who are just really unlikable but are well written. And I think for me that was a really interesting concept when drafting this book, because there are many times in this book where the main character is unlikable and she does things that you're like, don't do that, I would never do that, like, who would do that, or you're like, oh. And it's sometimes that's the character, that's what has happened to them has made them that way. Sometimes they just do things that you don't agree with, and I think you can read a character and not fully agree with them or agree with their choices or even how they speak or handle things, and it can sometimes be fun. I think we would do ourselves a real disservice if we only read characters that acted the exact same way we do.
You know, I think you did it so well, because she was always authentic. Rose was authentically herself all the time. The way she showed up was her.
Yeah.
And she also was very driven toward a goal.
Yes.
And when someone's driven toward a goal, niceties and the different, things that we do, maybe the way that we're polite to people or how we might act, goes out the window.
Yeah.
But if you're frantic and you're trying to figure out answers, and this is, she obviously had a lot of emotions wrapped around it, it's really tricky to have a character that you can sympathize with and understand and empathize with.
Yeah.
And I thought she was great.
Oh, good.
I think the,
Oh, sorry.
no, that was me, I think.
Together.
I have read books where the main character was both unlikable and uninteresting.
Yes.
And that's where I think the difference is. If you can make them somebody that you can understand where they're coming from, even if, like you said, you might not act that way, or that might not be how you would do it, but if you can understand, and if the author does a good job of making you understand and see where they're coming from, and you nailed that beautifully.
Thank you.
So I don't think you have anything to worry about there. What's something that's completely ordinary to you as a writer but fascinates people when they hear about it?
Besides how long writing takes, that's the biggest one. Everyone's like, what do you mean? It's like 6 months from now. I think sometimes when I sit down to draft, like I have a rough outline of something, but sometimes the characters do their own thing when you sit down to write it, and you try to describe that to someone who doesn't write. It sometimes sounds like a made-up answer that you wrote for a Q&A, but it really is true. Like sometimes you'll be writing in a way and you have a plan, but like it does kind of feel like they take on a life of their own, and they're like dragging you into a thing, and you're like, I wrote it, but I don't feel like I even came up with it. Like it feels like they did it on their own. And I am aware that it does make it sound like I'm a little schizophrenic, and that there's people like in my brain doing their own thing, but that really is how it feels when you get into a writing flow. They're like independent of you.
For sure. They start talking to you.
Yeah.
They start suggesting bigger roles for themselves. Hold on, I am in control here.
All kinds of stuff.
To me, that's the most fun part of writing it, because when that starts happening, it's because you become so immersed in the world that your subconscious, I think, just has this opening of like a portal almost, where you're like, okay, let's do this. I'm not even in control anymore, but keep it coming.
Yeah, like this book had a drastically different ending when I was planning it, and it took on a life of its own, and that's not what they wanted to do, so it's not what happened.
I love that. That's my favorite. Real quick, pantser or plotter?
I feel like both. If you guys don't know, pantsers versus plotters is like a writing thing with how you plan your books. Either you plan it out very detailed outlines, or your pantser, like by the seat of your pants. And for me, I have like a general outline. Like I know most of the time this is the end. These are some of our suspects. This is like how it's gonna go. But then like I don't know how they get there. Like sometimes I go on TikTok and I'll see writers who are like, and then at the end of this chapter, they turn on the light. I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen at the end of this chapter until I get there. So like I know who did it. I know how. I know like where we'll get to, but the rest of it is kind of up to them.
Did you ever have a point in this book where you wrote yourself, not into a corner necessarily, but you wrote in a direction, you were going toward that, and then you got there and went, oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Particularly around the different ending, because I think sometimes you'll like put little like, Easter eggs. You're like, okay, I knew that was going to be there, and then sometimes you're like, nah, I need to go add them because I did this. But there was definitely a point where I was building towards one specific ending, and when I was like, no, I don't want to do that, I had to go back in and rewrite some of the things that led you there because it didn't make sense anymore. So yeah, it's just a lot of writing is rewriting. That's the biggest thing.
It can feel exhausting sometimes too, when you're like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I found this better thing that I want to do, but now I have to go back and fix everything so that supports it. And if you're having an exhausting day already, it can be like, oh, that's difficult. But that's all part of the writing process.
Yeah.
What is something in the book that your readers think is fiction but is actually true? Did you have any of that?
I feel like a lot of the big salacious things in this book, people will come up to me and be like, did that happen to you? Did you do that? And the answer is no. But like I think with writing in general, sometimes like little stuff will make it in. Like there's concepts around like family and loss and like friendship breakups and things like that that are like come from a real place of things that happen to me, not specifically like that, but that you kind of write in a little bit. But the bigger plot devices, I feel like that would be evil to be like, hey, that's happening to so and so. I'm gonna put that in here, kind of. I don't know. I feel like I write this and everyone's like, wait a minute, that's so and so and what happened to them. I'm like, no, it's not. But Yeah, I try not to. I try not to be that person. He's like, that's great, I'm gonna put that in the next book.
There's something about writing a book where people who know you especially will trust and be like, hey, was that about so-and-so? Like, who was that about that thing? No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be.
Yeah, and if it is, it's unconscious and I didn't do it on purpose. Yeah.
If Rose showed up here tonight at this event, what would she say about it? That's kind of a double-edged sword because she is an author.
She is an author. I feel like she wouldn't be in Iowa would probably be my answer. Not because Iowa isn't great, but because she would think it's not great. So yeah, I think this is probably a familiar environment for her, but I don't think she's ever been in Des Moines. Would probably be my answer.
I think I can see that for sure. If someone made a playlist for this book, what's one song that absolutely has to be on it? Do you use a playlist when you write? Okay.
Yeah, I can't write in silence, unless it's like crunch time, and I'm like, no, you can't. You have to cut out all ADD distractions. But I wrote pretty much this entire book to the Dance Fever album by Florence and the Machine. Yeah, which I loved. And then I also feel like This Is Me Trying by Taylor Swift is a very rose-coded song.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. But this book is also a Florence and the Machine coded.
It is.
And maybe it's the Florence.
Well, and that came out after the book was already in development, and I was like, what do you mean there's a Florence and the Machine and Taylor Swift song? It's called Florida. And so it worked out really nicely for me.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah.
I mean, when I hear that song, I'm like, do I have anybody I can bury in a swamp in Florida?
No, literally.
I mean, they just sound really fun.
I was like, this is perfect.
Well, I love that answer. We're humming right through these. Okay, we've got about 9 minutes left. If your main character could rewrite the events of the book and get a do-over, what's the one decision they'd change? Was there one decision that you think Rose might change?
That's interesting, because a big plot element in this book, for those of you who have read the inside cover, is that Rose is kind of famous for writing a thriller novel about the crime that her brother went to prison for and kind of rewriting the ending. So she, I feel like, is very familiar with that concept. Mm-hmm. But I do think hindsight is 20/20, and if she knew how all of this would go towards the end, perhaps there's some people she might have been nicer to. Maybe, taken a breath and done some critical thinking before we made some major decisions. But I think it's an interesting concept because that's one of the really big themes in the book is, if you know now what you knew then, would you still do that?
This is not a spoiler, but I feel like Rose redeemed herself in several small ways at the end, and I loved that it was uplifting in a couple different plot points. I was like, I'm glad you brought that back in. Like in your epilogue, I am a big epilogue lover. Are you an epilogue lover? I mean, to me, please put an epilogue in your book, always. And I had it with the girl who used to know, and I had to take it out because I didn't want it.
I want to read it. If you haven't read, all of Tracy's books are good, but The Girl He Used to Know, it's one of my 5-star reads this year, and I'm stingy with my 5 stars. I bawled in the Ingersoll Walgreens parking lot listening to it, to the point where someone had to knock on my window and make sure I was okay.
Thank you for the shout out. I wasn't really trying to
and you
do
should
that.
buy it.
It was a double epilogue.
Oh, really?
And they were like, I think it ends the way it ends perfectly. I'm like, no, it didn't. It ends abruptly. There's a double epilogue. But anyway.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah. I love the fact that in your epilogue, it just, when an author comes back, they don't have to tie up every loose thread. They don't have to, nothing has to be completely tied up. But I love it when certain things are. Yeah. It just kind of gives you that nice feeling of, I just love the way this ended. So it was really well done.
Thank you. And if you hate Rose, like if you get like 100 pages and you're like, I can't stand her, you may not feel that way towards the end, is what I'll say, with no spoilers.
Oh, I came to really respect her.
Okay, good.
I really did.
Okay, good.
Okay, we have just a couple left. If you could go back and whisper one piece of advice to yourself before writing this book, what would it be?
Stop overwriting. If you can do it in 100,000 words. You don't need 150. But I think it's easier to pare things down when they exist than trying to like create things that aren't there. But I also would have been like, take a deep breath. You love doing this. This is all like everything you've ever dreamed of. So don't stress about the little stuff. Like, there's so many teeny tiny plot points in there that I think I was terrified of, and really like, are people gonna hate this? Are they gonna love it? And like, a book is a sum total of everything, so it's okay if like that one particular line of dialogue really bothers you or something. And yeah, just take a deep breath and calm down.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice for any
Water.
debut author, anyone that's embarking on this journey. Just
Yeah.
oh, darn it! I was going to add something to that, and I just. Oh, did you always know you wanted to be a writer, or at what age did this become apparent to you?
I feel like the second I knew it was a job, I wanted to do it. I was a huge reader my whole life, loved libraries. This is something I always wanted to do. I wrote a lot of stories when I was a kid. I did a ton of fan fiction when I was in middle school and high school. It was like a big thing. And I kind of knew eventually this was like a lifelong goal. I always would say for years and years, like, this is something I want to have one book published before I die. That was my life goal. Yes, and I'm just good.
She's
like,
yeah.
I just hang out from here on out. But,
And there will be many more. There's no,
yes, yes, I'm excited about it. But yeah, it's been something I wanted to do for a long time, and I think I got really close to it. I loved being a librarian. I got to be surrounded by books in a different way, and it was really formative and wonderful. But this was always something I wanted to do, whether it was going to be a full-time job or something I did once. Yeah, that was the
I love that you followed along with that and worked on, meeting the goal and following your dreams, because I don't remember exactly what the statistic was, but there is a certain percentage of people that want to write a book, say they're going to write a book, and they don't write a book. The number of people who actually, or the percentage of people who actually do complete the goal of writing the book is pretty small.
It is. And I think I get that a lot. People always tell me, I want to, you should. You'd be surprised how many people who have no writing background, who did different things. They were doctors, engineers, teachers. Like, it's not a precursor. You don't have to do a specific thing to do that. And there is room for everyone. People are reading so much more than they ever were. And I think, they want to read your book, but they can't if it doesn't exist.
I agree. All it takes is this and this, and you can become a writer. That's it. And a lot of determination.
Yes.
And a lot of tenacity.
Yes.
Because the bulk of writing a book it's arduous. And sometimes it can feel really, not boring, but
lonely.
It's very lonely. And it's just it's a huge cerebral undertaking that you're alone for all of that journey, really, as you're getting the story down. So it can be isolating, but when you see that finish line off in the distance and it's getting closer and closer, that really makes it worth it.
Yeah, this is pretty great. I'm not gonna lie.
Resting on this side of it.
But you have to do all of that to get to that point. And
Absolutely, that was 100% me. Okay, we have one more. What's next for you? Can you tell us all about what you're writing, what might already be turned in, where you're going next? Everybody's laughing.
So my second book is in developmental edits right now. It's
another thriller?
Yes, it's a psychological thriller. It's about two sisters' revenge, and it is actually set in central Iowa. I'm really excited. It was so fun. I had this idea for a long time, but it never had a setting, and I moved here and went, oh, now it does. And I feel like it was a fun love letter to the Midwest. So
I love that.
hopefully it'll come out this time next year. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have 2 minutes left, so I think...
Q&A.
Yeah, I think we've gotten through most of these questions, actually almost all of them. So yeah, let's go ahead and open it up to audience questions. Please don't be shy. If you have a question for Abby, there you go.
Okay, your dream cast in like the HBO miniseries.
Yeah.
I don't know all the characters, but some. Give us a little.
Okay, this is a tricky question because I go back and forth. I think right now, it's my sister gave me this one, so I'll give her that. If you've seen Yellow Jackets, I think Sophie Thatcher with dark hair could absolutely do it. I think she would be great. We just saw a He-Man movie, and I think Nicholas Calzatine would be a good one. Just because I want him in there. Yeah, and I'm like very open. One of the weird fun facts about me is I used to work in casting when I was in college, so it was a really fun thing to get to see sometimes people who you don't expect in those roles who do a great job. So yeah, I think I'd probably be a little picky about the Rose, but the rest of them I would just love to see who could bring it to life, I guess.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Jan?
Did you come up with the title, or?
That's a great question.
No. I had a different title for it for a while, and my my publisher liked it, but it was a tricky one to sell. So we went back and forth. It was originally called Nasty Little Bitch. And they bought it, and they were like, this is gonna go over really well or really bad. So we kind of did our work war room about it, and they finally decided, they were like, listen, if you want this to be something that can be in certain major retailers, things like that, you might run into situations where they don't want to put it on an end cap or certain things. So ultimately we decided we would keep the spirit of it. So if you read it, that is still her Instagram and Threads handle in the book. And it reads tweets, so they repeat it over and over and over. They're here you go, it's in there. But yeah, then they ended up coming back with some options, and Nasty Little Secrets keeps the spirit of it alive, but it did have a different title.
And the cover?
The cover I was not involved in whatsoever, but I think it's perfect, and I got insanely lucky with that.
Yeah, it's really striking.
Yeah.
I love it.
More questions? Yes.
Are you gonna let your book club your next book in front of you like you did with this one? Or were you too traumatized with this one?
So I have a book club, a very close group of friends, and when we got the early copies of the book, it came right before our big annual reading retreat where we just lock ourselves in a house in Pella for a long weekend. And so I gave them all their copies, and they had brought all these other wonderful books to read, and they were like, what if we all read this book for the first time in the living room in front of you for 3 days? And it was awful, wonderful, everything you can imagine. I mean, I don't think it's a unique experience. Very few people get to see for 10 hours someone read your book and experience every twist and thing in real time. So I'm so grateful, but it was nerve-wracking. It was me, a bottle of wine, and I'm they would have all these suspects, and I'm I have an expressive face, so I'm gonna go in the kitchen for a little bit. But I will probably do it again if they want to do it again.
Aw.
Oh, you have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
I am curious if you have a limit to do you want to just write until, say, you make enough money to be comfortable? Or, is this a means to a financial end? I mean, I know you love it, but it is exhausting. So, is that, and then you can live the rest of your life in leisure, or you want to do this
Forever. I would like to have it be my main job. So I would like to make enough money for that to happen. But I don't think anybody, hopefully, gets into it being this is going to make me rich. I think people do it because they love it, and I think it would be easier to do if it was full-time, if this was my main focus, because it's very, very stressful to work all day and then now it's time to write. But yeah, I think I'm just going to write until I can't write anymore. So.
Yay!
Yes?
What other genres can we expect from you in the
So I have written a romance. We have my book club friends love romances. I have mentioned it to the publisher. They want to get through this thriller before they read it. I'm terrified for them to read it because I feel like it can go one of two ways. They're gonna be this is great, or they're gonna be you should stick to murder. When I told my dad, I was yeah, I want to write a romance. He's you are not a romantic person. Yes, I am, but yeah. So I would like to eventually have a thriller and a romance every year. That would be my goal, but it's a little ambitious, so we'll see.
Any other questions? We've got plenty of time.
We have lots of time.
A lot of us are her friends.
Yeah, they
Yeah, we already.
There you go. We have one back there.
Do you, I guess I have 2 questions, so you can, rapid fire if you want. Number 1, at any point while writing, or is there any scene you read or while writing that made you cry while you did it? And then 2, what is your most favorite scene in the book, in its finished version?
Okay. I feel like there is a phone call at one point between Rose and Hazel that she's like remembering where she wants to go tour colleges, and like Rose is busy. She's just like, yeah, okay, that's great. And it was like really sad. I was like, no, you need to call her back. You need to be like a really involved sibling. And it was just like, they don't exist. They're not real people. They're fine. But, like, it was just, I don't know. I like, maybe it's because I have so many sisters, but I was like, no, this is so sad. And I think too, like, I am both a middle child and an eldest daughter, depending on what parent. So yeah, it made me sad. Like, I was like, you don't ignore her, just call her back. And so that made me cry. And then I love the chili scene. I think it's so fun. I think it's a fun thing to put in a thriller. I had a great time writing it. Yeah, there's also a scene in an airport where like Rose sees her own book and someone's reading it and she like signs it, but that got cut. So that's the Gabbie Hanks version of it that we'll never see the light of day. But yeah, the chilies is probably the most fun. Yeah.
Are any of the characters in the book you? Are you?
Yes.
No. At the time that I wrote this, I think this is important, I had really short, really straight, like bleach blonde hair, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna write someone really different than me that has long, dark hair, and books take a long time to come out, and so then I went back to like my hair. So now it's really hard to be like, none of them are me. You know what I mean? But no, I think my humor bleeds through sometimes. Like some of the dialogue, I'm like, yeah, every now and again that sounds like me. But I hope I'm not in it.
Any more questions?
I have one. So you say that you've always wanted to be a writer, but was there a certain book that made you want to be?
That's a great question.
That's a good question. I think when I was a kid, I went through like a lot of the really popular fandoms. Like I did Harry Potter, I did Twilight, I did all that, Hunger Games, and I was like, this is all great. And like it was always a concept. And then I think, this is a really weird answer, but I went through like a really heavy Pretty Little Liars book, not show, phase, and I remember that was the first time I read things with twists that were like very age level, and I was like, this is so fun. I want to do this. This is like, I can do this. And then, obviously, like I, was still very young, but when I was 19, I read Gone Girl for the first time, and I went, oh, this is what people were put on this earth to do, is write specifically Gone Girl. And so I wanted to get as close as possible, and then that's kind of where it landed. But yeah, everything I read, I'm like, would Gillian Flynn read this and hate it? And if the answer is yes, I scrap it and start. So it's those ones. It's Gone Girl and Pretty Little Liars, which is a weird combo, but yeah.
Do you think men will like reading this book?
I don't know. I would like to say, yeah, I think there's a lot of humor. It's not, my big thing with thrillers is I like them to feel like you sat down in a bar and you were talking to someone and they told you this really like crazy tragedy of something that happened to them or someone they know, and it can be like a crazy story. Sometimes people have that, but that it would like feel like a believable thing that happened in the real world. Like I don't like when they get too fantastical. So I think in that way, if you like thrillers, if you like things that feel like they could really happen and like really character-driven stories that are impactful, then you will like it. So I do think I'm gonna like it. My fiance liked it, and so.
Based on your characters on family members?
The next one, yes, there is a character that is very, very loosely based on my dad, which is why yeah, I take good parts of people. I try to do that. Like if there'll be definitely like the best parts of people I know sometimes make it in there and in characters. I don't take the worst because then it just feels like you were mean to me. You're in the next one.
How do you get your names? How did you come up with the names?
Ooh, this is kind of a crazy thing because most of the time, I'm not like she was born this character and that's how it, like sometimes I'm like, I don't like that. That sounds too much like the other character and I'll change it. I'm not like married to them. But in this particular one, I wrote it before I joined a book club here in Des Moines. And there were like 5 major characters of names of people that I didn't know and now are some of my closest friends. So there's an Alex who's not here, she's moved, but there's a Rose literally in the audience. There's an Amy. It's really, really weird how it kind of like feels faded to me now because I know these people, but yeah, sometimes I'm like, what was a popular name in 1983? And then scroll down until I find 31 and then pick that one. Yeah. I'm not like, there's no philosophical answer for that one, it's just Google.
Okay.
Oh.
Do you feel like you're ready for the next tour and the next coming months?
Yes. I think I'm really excited. I have a couple more stops, so that'll be nice. I just want it to last, I guess, is the big thing. Like, I want the next one, people to like it, and then that has enough faith to trust me to keep going and for people to just want to read it. As long as there's a couple people who want to keep reading them, that's really all I want.
Yeah, we will.
There you go.
I know you're gonna have anything to worry about.
Is there something you're really nervous to read? Like, in your life? Extended life?
No.
Somebody you really like, oh, I can't wait to read
No.
No. What about your high school English teacher? Have you reached out to say, hey, guess what? Story there, Gabbie?
Kind of. I hope he's married now. I hope his wife brings it home and they're like, oh, your former student wrote a book, and I hope they read it and they're like, oh god. Like, yeah, sometimes you have bad teachers, and I think a bad teacher deserves to end up somewhat in a book because teachers have a hugely important role, especially with kind of developing people's love of both reading and writing. So I think if you have a teacher that really shouldn't be one and isn't doing a good job, they deserve to be publicly shamed.
Nice. J.H.J.N.S.
Oh, I feel like when you read it, you'll be like, okay, this tracks. I don't want to spoil anything because there are some parts of the book that relate to a teacher, and I think when you get there, you're like, oh, okay, I get what she's talking about. It all makes sense without spoiling.
J.H.J.N.S. in her very first book, she writes mysteries, bestselling, and she had a college professor, English professor, that told her she was married, and he said, why don't you just let your husband write the books?
I remember that.
Yes, and her first book, she killed an English professor.
Now I get what you guys were talking about. There was the teacher who is loosely inspired in this did not write me a college recommendation letter for a writing program because they said, I don't think writing is your thing.
Oh,
So I
big
guess
mistake, big.
yeah, so whatever. Wrong, but that's fine.
I think you need to mail a copy.
I want to so much. I feel like they don't live in that state anymore, so I would have to do like a creepy level of stalking to get. I mean, I could get it, but if I got them, it would be a little bit like, oh, like I feel like it would make me look bad then for them, and I want to, I want to have the highbrow.
No, that was a pretty mean thing to say to a student.
It is mean.
That's not fostering
Maybe
any
I'll
kind
print
of...
the email and then stick it. And I'm like, I forgot. You still have 12 years and I won't let it.
You still have the email?
Yeah. Oh. It was really painful to be like, hey, and you know what the funny thing is I got every other teacher, I was like, oh my god, you're born for this is great. And I was like, I don't know. I just don't think it's your thing. In an email, that's like so...
He was a failed writer.
He was also like, now it's really, really weird to think about because he was 28 at the time and now I'm 28. And I'm like, I just don't think I would say that to a 17-year-old. Like, I just don't think, I'd lie. I'd be like, you are going to be the best writer ever, even if it's not true. Because, like, I'm crushing people's dreams before they even
Exactly. It's really hard to write a book.
It is.
To tell someone that they're not even cut out for it before they've even had a chance to try is really detrimental.
And then I'm like, okay, time to write my college letter, like your actual essay. But sorry, this turned into therapy.
I think we all need to try it out. Oh my god. That was bad news.
I wonder if you saw the website.
I don't know. I don't think about it as much as this is making me seem like.
Well, you can justify.
I know. Yeah. I think once I wrote it down, that's the other thing. Writing's very therapeutic. So once you get it out, you're like, I can let it go. To an extent. some things. But like, yeah, I think I you know, he can find it, and maybe he'll feel differently. Maybe I'll get another email. Sorry.
Alrighty, I think there's some cupcakes waiting.
Yeah.
And she's going to be signing books right here. Give me just a couple of minutes to move some chairs out of the way, and we'll line up right here. And help yourself to cupcakes, and courtesy of the author.
Thank you to everyone for coming tonight, and Gabbie, I hope you have the best rest of your week with all of these fun book things and traveling and signings. It's a blast.
Thank you. It's been so fun. Thank you guys all so much for coming. This is so incredibly wonderful to look out and see all of you guys. I'm trying not to cry.
You're getting all kinds of hearts on Facebook. They're just floating up.